Hold on to your seats, because what just went down in the music world is nothing short of explosive. Imagine plotting to end someone's career, thinking your move is secret, your plan unstoppable, only to have it completely backfire within hours. That's exactly what happened when Rich D tried to take down J. Rowe. Did he seriously think he could dismantle an empire without consequences? How could anyone underestimate a man whose influence stretches across the industry like a tidal wave? Social media is ablaze with rumors, leaked clips, and fan reactions that have everyone talking. Who really tipped off the insiders? Which alliances were secretly forming in the shadows? And how did J. Rowe respond so fast, so strategically, that Rich D's plan collapsed before it even fully began? This isn't just a feud, it's a full-blown scandal that's shaking the foundations of the industry. In the next few minutes, you're going to get every jaw-dropping detail. The secret meetings, the whispered threats, the public call-outs, and the reactions from fans that left the internet in chaos. J. Rowe isn't just defending his career, he's sending a message that anyone foolish enough to challenge him is in for the fight of their life. Buckle up, because this story is packed with drama, betrayal, and shocking twists you won't want to miss.
The music world rarely sees moves as audacious as the one Rich D attempted. For weeks, whispers circulated about a plan, an elaborate scheme designed to topple one of the industry's most untouchable figures, J. Rowe. But nobody expected the magnitude of what would unfold. Could anyone truly believe that trying to sabotage a man who has built his empire brick by brick could end well? The answer became glaringly obvious within hours. Social media erupted in chaos, with fans and insiders alike scrambling to process the fallout. Tweets went viral before anyone could catch their breath. Instagram stories spilled details nobody should have known. And the forums dedicated to industry gossip became battlegrounds for speculation and outrage. People were asking themselves, who leaked the information first? Was it an insider with a grudge? Or was it J. Rowe himself, sending a message so sharp it cut through Rich D's plans like a hot knife through butter? J. Rowe's empire isn't just about music. It's a carefully constructed network of power, influence, and loyalty. To challenge him is to play a dangerous game, one that Rich D clearly underestimated. The audacity of thinking that one could destabilize a career so meticulously built is almost comical. But tragedy mingles with comedy when you realize the scale of the potential fallout. Rich D's attempts were strategic, yes, but flawed. Mistakes were made. Assumptions about loyalty, public perception, and timing were all catastrophically off. And that's where J. Rowe shined. Within moments of learning about the threat, he enacted countermeasures that not only neutralized the risk, but amplified his own image. The man didn't just defend his empire, he showcased a level of foresight and industry mastery that left observers stunned. For those outside the inner circle, the first sign that something monumental was happening came through a leaked snippet, a blurred video barely 30 seconds long showing Rich D in what appeared to be a tense conversation with an unnamed associate. The content was vague, but the context screamed danger. Fans began dissecting every word, every gesture, attempting to decode the meaning behind each movement. Speculation ran wild. Were these threats, bribes, promises of alliances that would never hold? The fact that such a small clip could send the internet into a frenzy says everything about the stakes involved. J. Rowe, on the other hand, released a calm, composed response to the rumors, posting cryptic yet powerful statements that hinted at knowing far more than he was letting on. It was classic J. Rowe, subtle yet devastatingly effective. History tells us that Rich D has never been subtle. Past controversies paint a picture of someone who thrives on shock value, who leans into drama to gain attention, often at the cost of his own credibility. From rumored financial mishaps to public feuds with other artists, he has a track record of overestimating his control over situations. But this time, the stakes were different. J. Rowe wasn't just any artist. He's a mogul, a strategist, someone whose influence extends beyond music into business, endorsements, and political connections within the entertainment world. Attempting to dismantle that influence was akin to stepping into a lion's den with a slingshot. And yet Rich D moved forward, perhaps blinded by ego, perhaps convinced that the right exposure could elevate his status. As the night unfolded, details began leaking from anonymous sources, real and fake, but all persuasive enough to send speculation into overdrive. One source claimed that Rich D had assembled a covert team, including former associates and disgruntled employees, to execute a plan that involved both public smear campaigns and attempts to poach key collaborators from J. Rowe's label. Another source suggested that legal threats had already been drafted, meant to intimidate anyone who dared to defend Rowe. Even though these reports were unverified, the mere hint of insider knowledge sent fans into a frenzy. Everyone wanted to know, would J. Rowe crumble under pressure, or would he expose Rich D for the fool he was? J. Rowe, however, didn't stumble. If anything, he thrived. In a move that has now been described as genius manipulation of public perception, he allowed just enough of Rich D's plan to surface, then countered it with controlled leaks of his own. Stories of loyalty bonuses, and secret collaborations spread across the web, painting J. Rowe as untouchable. The contrast could not have been more stark. Where Rich D appeared desperate, reactive, and vulnerable, J. Rowe exuded calm power, turning what should have been a scandal into a masterclass in brand control. Observers couldn't stop analyzing every post, every interview, and even unrelated appearances on talk shows became fodder for speculation. It's a level of scrutiny reserved for true industry titans, and it highlights the high stakes and personal cost of such confrontations. Rich D's miscalculation wasn't just a misstep, it was a public spectacle, a lesson in the dangers of overconfidence and underestimating an opponent's acumen.
As night turned to early morning, insiders hinted at private meetings happening behind closed doors. Industry veterans suggested that both camps were negotiating, possibly discussing ceasefires, settlements, or future collaborations. Yet the aura of tension remained. J. Rowe's handling of the situation had shifted the power dynamics dramatically. From the outset, Rich D believed he could control the narrative, but J. Rowe's superior understanding of media, perception, and fan loyalty ensured that the narrative was rewritten in his favor. In every sense, this confrontation showcased not just the clash of two individuals, but a masterclass in influence, strategy, and survival within the high-stakes world of modern entertainment. By the time the sun rose, the public discourse had crystallized. J. Rowe had not only survived an unprecedented attack on his career, but had also emerged stronger, his empire reaffirmed. Rich D, meanwhile, faced a backlash that extended beyond mere reputation damage. Alliances were questioned, partnerships dissolved, and the social media ridicule continued unabated. It was a dramatic reminder of the risks inherent in attempting to take down a figure whose influence is both extensive and deeply entrenched. And just when the story seemed like it might calm down, another twist emerged. Snippets of conversations, allegedly from Rich D's inner circle, leaked online. They revealed the planning, the fears, and the realization of impending failure, giving the public a rare glimpse into the chaos behind the scenes. Fans dissected every syllable, every reaction, comparing these revelations to J. Rowe's calm, composed responses. The contrast couldn't have been more dramatic. One side, frantic and reactive, the other, deliberate and strategically omnipresent. As the dust settled from the initial shockwave, it became glaringly obvious that Rich D had underestimated just how deep J. Rowe's roots ran in the industry. While most outsiders only saw the surface-level fame and fortune, the real power lay in the networks, the connections, and the loyalty that Jay had cultivated over years, carefully building an empire that was as strategic as it was influential. Every collaborator, every manager, every PR consultant had been hand-picked to not only maximize success, but to ensure that anyone attempting to destabilize the empire would hit walls at every turn. Rich D's so-called master plan was unraveling faster than anyone could have anticipated, and the whispers from insiders only added fuel to the fire. They claimed that Rich D's meetings had been covert, his intentions shrouded in secrecy, Yet somehow the very people he thought were his allies were already feeding back information to J. Rowe's camp. It was a masterclass in espionage gone wrong, a trap of his own making, and it was only just beginning. Fans, ever vigilant, began noticing patterns in the public exchanges and subtle hints in interviews, social media posts, and even award show appearances. J. Rowe, with the finesse of a seasoned strategist, started dropping cryptic statements, not directly addressing Rich D, but making it painfully clear that he was aware of every move, every whisper, and every attempt to undermine him. The reactions were instantaneous. Clips went viral, memes were shared at lightning speed, and speculation reached a fever pitch. Analysts tried to break down Jay's every action. Was this calculated psychological warfare, a demonstration of dominance, or just a man who refused to be blindsided by a rival? Whatever it was, the effect was undeniable. Rich D's credibility was eroding in real time, and his so-called influence was being questioned by those who had once been his closest supporters. Leaked reports, allegedly from anonymous insiders within Rich D's own circle, began surfacing. They detailed lavish parties meant to impress, backroom deals designed to manipulate contracts, and strategic partnerships that were supposed to isolate J. Rowe's allies. But what was meant to be covert and intimidating was instead turning into public spectacle. Each leak painted Rich D as reckless, desperate, and increasingly erratic. Sources suggested that internal tensions were escalating, that his team was split between loyalty to him and fear of falling out with J. Rowe. Meanwhile, J. Rowe's responses, subtle, controlled, and dripping with calculated poise, only highlighted the missteps. Every public appearance of Rich D seemed to invite ridicule or suspicion, and the media picked up on it instantly. Headlines ran wild, social media debates flourished, and the narrative had shifted. What was intended to be a stealthy dismantling of an empire was becoming a public lesson in hubris and miscalculation. The fallout didn't stop with perception. Financial analysts began projecting potential repercussions on Rich D's ventures. Contracts were allegedly delayed, investors grew nervous, and rumors of canceled collaborations spread like wildfire. Even within industry circles, where loyalty and business interests often outweigh public perception, the murmurs grew louder. Executives questioned whether associating with Rich D was worth the risk, while artists reconsidered their collaborations. Meanwhile, J. Rowe's position solidified further, as every misstep by his rival only amplified his own reputation for being untouchable, shrewd, and unflappable. The contrast couldn't have been more stark. One man scrambling to control a crumbling narrative, the other commanding the spotlight with effortless authority. And then came the social media storms. Fans weren't just observing, they were participating. Every leaked email, every cryptic post, every subtle jab from J. Rowe's camp became viral fodder. Meme accounts exploded with content, dissecting Rich D's every move, highlighting inconsistencies, and mocking his failed tactics. Twitter threads stretched endlessly, dissecting insider claims, alleged meetings, and supposed collabs that never materialized. Instagram stories and TikTok reactions amplified the chaos, creating a frenzy that even traditional media couldn't ignore. Public opinion swung decisively, and Rich D found himself facing not just industry scrutiny, but an engaged, relentless, and unyielding fan base that was turning his mistakes into a global spectacle. Insiders claimed that the tension escalated behind the scenes. Rich D allegedly called emergency meetings, trying to salvage alliances and reassure partners, but trust was already eroding. Subtle hints suggested that some key collaborators were quietly switching allegiances, either drawn to J. Rowe's stability or fearing the backlash from being associated with someone now seen as reckless. The irony was brutal. In attempting to isolate and control J. Rowe, Rich D had only highlighted his own vulnerabilities. Every attempt to assert dominance or intimidate allies backfired spectacularly. and the network he had meticulously built began showing cracks.
Meanwhile, J-Ro's team appeared to operate with surgical precision. Not a single move was reactive. Each action seemed premeditated, timed perfectly to maximize impact and minimize risk. Public interviews, music releases, and social media posts were all coordinated to reinforce his unshakable image. Each subtle reference, each carefully curated public appearance sent the message: I am aware, I am prepared, and no one can undermine me. The contrast between the two camps was glaring. Where Rich D was frantic, overexposed, and increasingly transparent, J-Ro was calm, composed, and in complete control. Every new development only reinforced the narrative that he was untouchable, and any attempt to challenge him would come at a steep cost. The narrative gained even more traction when purported insider accounts detailed Rich D's attempts to manipulate media outlets, plant stories, and sway public opinion. According to these sources, he had spent millions trying to engineer a perception that J-Ro was vulnerable, distracted, or even compromised. But the very act of overexposure provided J-Ro with ammunition. Every claim, every planted story, every secretive meeting became a point of scrutiny, a potential liability, and a tool for J-Ro's camp to expose weaknesses and inconsistencies. It was a textbook example of overreach. In trying to control the narrative, Rich D had created vulnerabilities that were immediately exploited, turning the hunter into the hunted. Even the casual observers started noticing patterns that suggested a methodical dismantling of Rich D's influence. Industry blogs reported on abrupt cancellations, mysterious delays, and shifting partnerships. Journalists speculated about the long-term implications for his empire, questioning whether his reputation could survive a public unraveling of this magnitude. Meanwhile, J-Ro's presence loomed larger than ever, a reminder that while Rich D's actions may have been bold, they were ultimately amateurish when compared to the calculated precision of a seasoned mogul. The spectacle played out across media platforms, with viral content, analysis, and commentary saturating feeds, making it impossible to ignore. The psychological impact on Rich D was reportedly significant. Sources hinted at growing tension, sleepless nights, and internal conflict within his team. Once a confident strategist, he now appeared to be reacting rather than acting, scrambling to contain the fallout he had inadvertently unleashed. Every leak, every insider whisper, every viral post intensified the pressure. Meanwhile, J-Ro continued to navigate the storm with unparalleled control, turning every potential threat into a reinforcement of his dominance. It was almost poetic. Ambition, unchecked and poorly calculated versus experience, precision, and unshakable confidence. By now, the public narrative had completely flipped. Rich D, who had aimed to dominate, intimidate, and control, was instead viewed as reckless, overambitious, and increasingly irrelevant in the shadow of J-Ro's enduring influence. The drama wasn't just entertainment, it was a cautionary tale for anyone in the industry who believed they could topple a giant without understanding the breadth of their power. Fans continued to speculate about behind-the-scenes moves, potential counterattacks, and what this meant for the future of both empires. Meanwhile, J-Ro's aura of control only strengthened, leaving everyone wondering, was there ever really a chance Rich D could succeed? Or was this an inevitable public demonstration of why some figures are untouchable in an industry built on perception, influence, and strategic mastery? J-Ro's empire had been shaken to its core, but the fight was far from over. The tension in the industry had reached a fever pitch, and every move Jay made was being scrutinized. Reports of secret meetings, private investments, and undisclosed partnerships began to surface from anonymous insiders. Fans and critics alike were speculating wildly. Was this the beginning of Jay's downfall or a calculated counterattack? Every tweet, Instagram story, and live appearance was dissected like evidence in a courtroom drama, and the public couldn't get enough. He's hiding something, one supposed insider claimed, and Rich D knows exactly what it is. The allegation alone sent shockwaves through social media, causing hashtags like #JRoExposed and #RichD versus JRo to trend worldwide. People were obsessed, creating memes, reaction videos, and livestream commentary, each more exaggerated than the last. Jay's every purchase, every collaboration, and every public statement was being framed as part of a larger war strategy. Meanwhile, rumors of Rich D leveraging influential contacts and industry insiders to sabotage Jay's reputation added layers of intrigue. Allegedly, multi-million-dollar deals were blocked, shows were canceled, and certain influencers were bribed to spread false narratives. The tension escalated with the release of supposed leaked documents showing financial irregularities and undisclosed partnerships, though authenticity remained debated. Jay's loyal fanbase jumped into action, defending him vigorously, while neutral observers speculated on the real scale of the conflict. The industry had never witnessed such a theatrical showdown, and every day brought new twists, from clandestine meetings and luxury hotels to cryptic social media posts hinting at betrayals and secret alliances. It was a web of intrigue so complex that even seasoned journalists admitted they couldn't separate fact from fiction. Behind the scenes, insiders alleged that Jay was strategically contacting former rivals, forming temporary alliances to counter Rich D's maneuvers. Private negotiations, shrouded in secrecy, hinted at a broader scheme, reclaiming influence, exposing D's underhanded tactics, and solidifying his legacy. Sources claimed that Jay had been gathering intel on D's plans for months, monitoring business moves, social media patterns, and industry partnerships. Allegedly, he had contingency strategies ready, from orchestrated media leaks to subtle financial maneuvers designed to destabilize D's influence without overt confrontation. Fans speculated that Jay's calculated silence in public appearances was a tactical decision, creating suspense and keeping the audience guessing. Meanwhile, D's camp grew frustrated, leaking minor controversies to distract from Jay's resurgence. Every industry insider seemed to have an opinion, creating a climate of speculation and sensationalism. Rumors suggested that Jay had allies within major streaming platforms, influencing algorithmic promotion and content prioritization to favor his brand, a move that allegedly diminished D's visibility. The narrative was further fueled by supposed anonymous tips sent to major tabloids and YouTube commentators, claiming to reveal secret deals, hidden investments, and unreported collaborations. The tension was tangible, both online and in private boardrooms. Allegedly, Rich D attempted to intimidate certain collaborators to abandon Jay, but the move backfired, galvanizing loyalty and strengthening Jay's position. Even legal analysts began weighing in, debating whether some of D's alleged tactics bordered on unlawful interference, with hypotheticals of lawsuits, investigations, and fines thrown into public discourse. All of this played into a broader media frenzy where speculation often overshadowed confirmed facts, but each development added layers to the unfolding drama. Jay's social media posts, often cryptic, became dissected minute by minute, with fans interpreting subtle gestures, clothing choices, or wording as clues to ongoing strategies.